but we had a food inspector come and inspect our warehouse. She does like food inspections, and she would not tell us who, but she said one of her inspections, they took her into a room stacked with paper. She said, why am I in this room? And they're like, oh, this is the fiber that we add to the flour.
So gross.
To meet the fiber content. They literally shredded the paper and we're putting it into flour. Now, I don't know the brand. I don't have a reason to not believe this lady. She's a food inspector, but there's a lot that we can be misled by with marketing. So whole wheat.
Okay. Whoa. So,
okay, I'm pausing. Yeah.
No. Oh my gosh.
Tired of wondering what's for dinner again? Don't worry, I've got you covered. Whether you're trying to stretch one chicken into 5 meals, recreate your favorite junk food, but with a nourishing spin, or just need something simple for those in-between moments, I have a cookbook just for all 3 of those scenarios. They are real food, kid-friendly, and actually doable recipes. Grab yourself an automatic download of each of my cookbooks, One Chicken, 5 Meals, Nourishing Junk Foods, and In-Betweens. These will bring a little calm into your kitchen. Go to fornutrientsake.com and use the code MAM15 for 15% off your order.
Welcome to Modern Ancestral Mamas. We are Corey and Christine, 2 millennial moms on a mission to bring ancestral wisdom to modern motherhood. Welcome back, guys.
This is part 1 of our brand new series on grains, on bread, on all of those things that you guys are desperately interested in learning about. This is episode 1 of 5. So make sure that you tune in over the next few weeks to hear all of the installments of this episode. One note we have about this episode is that we recorded it months and months ago, before Christmas. So there's a few things that we're talking about within the episode that is in line with, if you were thinking about it before Christmas. So we were talking about like, oh, this would make a great gift, or, things like that. So just keep that in mind when you're listening. Okay, I think that's all we have to let you know before we get started. So let's dive in with the Unsifted girls.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the show. We want to clarify that there's going to be 4 voices today so that everybody knows. It's a little crowded in the tech space, in the tech room. So Sarah, welcome, Sarah. Can you say hello?
Hello, this is Sarah. So excited to be here.
Yeah. And Kira, can you say hello?
Hi, guys. I'm Kira.
And I'm Corey, and that's Christine.
Yeah.
And we're doing a show. Okay. We always start the show off with a simple question that's related to what we're going to be talking about, just kind of break the ice. And so today our question is, what is your favorite grain product to bake? So not to eat, not to, to bake. I feel like that's a clarification. Who wants to go first? Anybody?
Okay, I'll go first. It is definitely hard for me to choose. Of course, the grain product would be something made with freshly milled flour. That's maybe obvious. But I absolutely love making French toast. I use raw milk locally. I get farm fresh eggs, raw local honey, and I just feel so good about every single ingredient that's going into that French toast with the unsifted bread. And then it's almost like vacuuming. You can see your progress as you've got all of them spread out on the griddle and you're just flipping them over back to back. So for me, that's a very rewarding baked good to make.
And you freeze it, right?
Yes, I freeze it. So I actually meal prep with the French toast. So I freeze it for easy and convenient breakfast on the run. I cut it up into sticks, like French toast sticks. And it's been a wonderful gift to give if people are recovering from a sickness or a surgery, and especially for their children. A lot of times we don't think about when people are recovering, like the moms especially, they're actually worried about who's feeding their children when they're not able to. And so I love gifting French toast sticks. Absolutely.
That's a great idea.
Oh.
Okay.
It's super handy. Yeah.
I think mine would be I'm not great at favorites because I don't like to be boxed in. So forgive me.
I feel the same way.
a personal trait or a flaw. I don't know, however you want to view it. I like making things with my kids. I have a 8, 5, and 2-year-old, and especially my 5 and 2-year-old just love baking. And so my 2-year-old's like the mill control. She like turns it on, insists on pouring every cup of grain. So,
Really?
like yesterday we just made Christmas cookies, like chocolate crinkles. It's just fun to like that they like to be a part of the process. So I think it doesn't necessarily matter what it is, but like letting them kind of be a part of that and enjoy it has been like, so anything like that. They like cookies, so we do treats of cookies every once in a while. So not the healthiest,
Christine.
but there it is.
Christine, what do you want to say?
Oh man. Corey knows this, but baking is my arch nemesis. I am terrified of it. I'm not good at it. I feel like I always mess it up. And I just, it's so funny. It's just one of those things that like I have not gotten comfortable with yet. Probably because I haven't done it enough. But
hold on. Christine's over here like making heart and liver and like all these wacky things all the time. And she's like, but when it comes to baking.
This is true. There's something about it. Like, give me all the organ meats or all of these like weird dishes and I can do that. But when it comes to baking and using grains, I feel extremely just uncomfortable and like I don't know my space. I think because I don't like following recipes specifically, directions specifically. And so every time I get a baking recipe, I'm like, I don't really feel like doing that. I'm just going to change it a little bit. And then my product doesn't turn out the way it's supposed to. And it's like, well, obviously you're supposed to follow it exactly. Okay, but if I had to pick one thing, I'm trying to think. What do I enjoy baking? Ooh, probably something really simple like a banana bread or like a bread like that. And lately I have been doing a buckwheat bread. And I've done it both with pumpkin and both with zucchini, and it's turned out really well both times. I think I've like found a base recipe that I like, that I've changed the way I like it, and it's worked for both of those add-ins. Yeah, and with buckwheat. So
even better.
Yeah, I love buckwheat. Buckwheat pancakes are fantastic. If you
I haven't made those yet. I need to try
like
those.
Mocha. They taste like a mocha pancake. It's so good.
Okay. All
And
right.
if I could just speak to that about not baking, I was a box mix baker before I started fresh flour baking. I was horrible at baking, and it actually was a huge source of shame for me. I was like, you're in your mid-30s and you don't even know how to make muffins or cookies. Like, I wouldn't invite people over because I felt like I had nothing to offer them. It was a source of shame for me. Yeah. And that is one of our missions with Unsifted, is to make fresh flour baking as absolutely easy and as convenient as possible. And we like to say, if you can crack an egg and measure water, that's all the skills you need to bake Unsifted. We've eliminated all of those barriers. And so those non-bakers, box mix bakers, overwhelmed bakers are definitely really the women that we're trying to reach with this nutritional information about how a simple change can totally benefit, your wellness. So you are not alone in that, Christine.
I'm your target audience.
Yes, you are. Now, Kira, on the other hand, she's a lifelong baker. So
yeah,
she's the opposite end of that spectrum. She's been making homemade cinnamon rolls for neighbors her whole life. So it's been fun to meet both of those different audiences.
Question really fast, because you said you like buckwheat. Are you doing white buckwheat or black buckwheat?
Yeah. So I haven't done a ton of research into the different varieties of buckwheat. Mine's kind of a bluish color, and I mill it fresh in my Wonder Mill. And so I use it for freshly milled buckwheat pancakes or crepes. It's really good for crepes as well.
Oh, crepes. Okay.
Yeah. Those are fun to make too.
Okay. Corey, your turn.
Okay. So I kind of go in not stages, but like I get in a rut. So right now my rut is gingerbread, like not the cookies, but like the cake, that you would put like an old fashioned gingerbread cake. So my kids have been obsessed with the Stories, Mrs. Pigglewiggle books.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yeah.
Yes, that's so funny.
And she is like famous for making gingerbread. And so I don't know, but I'm highly influenced by whatever we're reading. So
Great.
so I was like, we need to make gingerbread because it's like Christmas time. And so I made the gingerbread from the Little House cookbooks.
Oh.
And I made it with freshly milled wheat. And I don't think it's the best recipe. I haven't found the right one yet, but that's kind of like my rut. Like I'll get into this rut where I'm like, and now I have to find the best recipe for whatever it is that I've decided I'm making this rut month or whatever. So right now it's gingerbread, but I don't know. I'm also, I love baking. So I'm the opposite of Christine.
I know,
Let me bake all the things.
So Corey, you're like Kira, and Christine, you're more like me.
Yeah.
You'll find this as we're talking. It's like the Lord brought us together on this mission, and it's hilarious. It makes it better, but we were like, in some ways we're so similar, but in a lot of ways we're like complete
Very
opposites.
different.
So like if you think about how to get from A to Z, like I'll go this way and she'll go this way, or I'll go this way. It's like, it's just funny how we think about things. So it's been fun.
It's been very fun. Yeah, we always have to listen very intently to each other because I truly have no idea what she's about to say. It will be something I have never thought of at all, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, that's
I love
awesome.
that.
Okay,
Wait,
well then
I
go
have
ahead.
one more question that I think we should just put out there, which is what grain mills is everybody using? Like what brand, and do you like it? And
Yes. So that is an exceptional question. And this is by far the most controversial thing that we talk about. And
Start off strong.
I just want you to know that however you choose to mill whatever grain mill you buy, we are absolutely thrilled for you. The different mills meet different goals, and that is totally fine. And we are blessed to have different options for those different lifestyles or different seasons. So I just want to start by saying that because I think sometimes when we talk about the mills and the different features that work really well for us and for our customers, that might not be the same goal set that a listener would have. And that is totally, totally okay. Fresh flour can still be an awesome solution with any of those mills. So that being said, there's really four that we hear about the most often. The first one is the KitchenAid attachment. Many people have the KitchenAid mixer. They're not totally sure about investing into fresh flour, and so it's a low-cost entry point into milling. And it seems like a really good first step to kind of see if you like it. But that is the one mill that we do not recommend. We actually have dozens of testimonials of customers who have burned out their KitchenAid motors using that mill. It happened to us. We just get this sad story so often, and it's all over the internet if you look for it. And actually, even on the KitchenAid website, there's some cautions against using even their biggest mixers for kneading breads, let alone for the milling attachment. So we would just say, don't do the KitchenAid attachment. Don't be lured by the price.
Hey guys, we're so sorry. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties and we had to cut this part of the episode. Don't worry. We are definitely going to go back to discussing grain mills again. So make sure you stay tuned and listen to the entire episode because we do talk about grain mills at the end. Okay.
Enjoy the rest of the episode, guys. Okay, so we'd love it if we could get your short-ish version of why you're at where you're at, what got you there, what brought you to using freshly milled flour.
Yeah, great question. So Kira and I actually met 13 years ago at work. So we're both engineers, and we met right out of college at a company here in Kansas City. And I remember the first time I was in a meeting with Kira, I left the meeting and I told my friend, I said, I don't care what project I'm on in the future. I want Kira on my team. She's outstanding. She is technically brilliant and the most wonderfully, authentically compassionate person
She's very generous
on earth. No, she's amazing. So anyway, I had this memory of Kira from work of just being an absolute rock star. And we were like casual work friends, you know. She would always remember my birthday and bake cookies. She's a lifelong baker. I'm a box mix baker, so we were opposites. I always admired her in that way. But, you know, we didn't really hang out outside of work or anything like that. Well, fast forward to COVID, all the restaurants are closed, we're locked in. I live alone, and my single income, no kids lifestyle, I used to eat out a lot. And so without my restaurants, I genuinely didn't know what to make for myself. And one of my friends told me that I should buy flour and make bread. And I wasn't really thrilled about that idea because even since I was a little girl, I've gotten headaches from, you know, eating bread products. I now realize it's from the gluten and the toxins that were in the commercial flour. But not only did I not know how to bake bread, but I didn't want to feel bad for all of COVID. I'm like, well, it's better than starving. So I went to look for the flour. They were sold out of flour. Everybody had this idea before me.
I was so annoyed about that.
I know.
I was so annoyed because I was like, I need these people at the grocery store to stock flour for the people who were buying the flour before COVID happened.
Yes, that's right. So no flour. And my friend told me, he's like, well, why don't you just go meet a farmer? Because whole grains are the most nutrient dense food in the world. Just get some wheat and grind your own flour. And I thought that sounded insane. I don't live near a farm, and I don't know how to grind my wheat or bake bread. But I remembered an ex-boyfriend from a few years before. It was so embarrassing. His mom milled her own flour. And the first time I went to visit her, she made me freshly milled, I think they were Ranger cookies, freshly milled Ranger cookies. And, you know, I graciously accepted it. And I remember her saying, these cookies are good for you. I made my own flour. And I thought, no, they're not.
Oh.
They got sugar and they're going to give me a headache. And so I sneakily threw the cookie away. I didn't even try it.
Hopefully she's not listening.
I hope she's not listening. I know, Kay, I'm sorry. But, but that memory popped back into my mind during COVID. And I thought, I know someone that makes their own flour. So I called her. She'd been milling flour for 30 years. All of her children are now adults, and she'd been doing it their whole lives. And she pointed me to some amazing resources, one of which was Sue Becker. I watched a YouTube video from Sue online, and oh my goodness, it just changed my life. It was one of the most inspiring videos I've ever seen. And I had never heard of anything like this before. So I immediately thought of Kira, because Kira is a baker. And I thought, surely if this is good for you, Kira's holistic. She does all these non-toxic things. She's going to know about fresh flour if this is the real deal. And so Kira was my first call after learning about this. And she had heard of it before. You'd done some research, right?
But I had a 1-year-old and a baby prior to that. So I'm like not in the like ability to make a decision on how much money I'm going to spend on a mill. Like, it was outside of my window of tolerance at the moment.
Yeah, but I had ample time, not married and no children. And so I started researching whole grains like a maniac. I would be up until 4 a.m. looking at things online and calling people, and then I went all in. I ordered a ton of grain. Well, not a ton, literally.
We got the last 2 mills on the market.
Yeah, I forgot.
From the pandemic at this sweet lady's shop in Virginia, like on some website that no one else could find. But Sarah found them.
I found them. I called this lady's cell phone from my bed at 8 o'clock in the morning on like a Tuesday. And she told me she'd had these 2 Wonder Mills for years, and her husband wouldn't let her use them because they were electric. And so they only did hand milling.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, I'm like, we'll buy them from you. And so I bought this mill and called Kira. I'm like, you've got to buy this mill. It's the last one in America. They've closed the ports. This is the real deal. Like, come on, Kira.
Now I have to convince my husband. He's like, what? I like your food. Why would I want that? Like, whole grain's nasty. Like, why would I want to switch to that?
Yeah, that was the whole thing.
Yeah, sorry.
So
It's a different story.
we had different approaches to diving into fresh flour. I was like all in. I had never baked before other than box mix brownies and like a pound cake with my grandma, you know. And I bought 18 gallons of wheat and a mill, and I made a loaf of bread, and it was like the worst loaf of bread in technique. Worst looking. I kneaded it for over an hour to put it in because I didn't know what I was doing.
Whoa.
But that was the best thing I have ever eaten. That first bite of freshly milled bread was absolutely unbelievable. And I don't even know how to describe it other than it's the first time I've eaten food and been satisfied. And I didn't get a headache. I didn't get bloated. I didn't carb crash. I actually, as I was eating more of it, had more clarity of thought. My skin was clearing up. I had better energy. I was sleeping better. It was like too good to be true. And I ended up losing weight.
Yeah.
I lost 6 pounds. And so I'm going through and doing all this. I got my blood work back from my annual physical 4 weeks later, and I'd had chronic nerve pain for several years. That had gone away, and my blood work showed my inflammation had dropped in half. My liver was twice as healthy as it had been in 10 years. I do this blood work every year at the same doctor. Perfect cholesterol, perfect triglycerides. I'd lost 6 pounds of fat and maintained the same muscle. And so I was ecstatic and, of course, called Kira after my physical.
Well, so the 2 meals left, I'll just go back slightly.
Tell
There
them
was those 2 meals left. I convinced my husband, I'll make this quick, but just to kind of like keep it in the same time frame. My aunt, I heard about milling for my aunt, which I thought she was nuts. I'm like, just buy the flour from the store. Like, this is weird. Like, come on. But I was wrong. I'm eating all those words.
Literally.
Yeah.
So my husband's like, had to talk to her and see if it was gross or if it was going to be okay. Will the kids eat it? Why are we spending this? All the things. After finally convincing him, it took we thought about it, prayed about it for like a week. We're like, okay. So this meal was still there because it was only a few days.
I
Maybe
don't know
it was
how
only
anyone
3
could
to 4
find
days.
this lady.
Yeah, it was
It's because God was involved in this. He was like,
Yeah, it was like,
You
it
don't
was
find
like,
this.
the 19th page of Google type of a thing.
only Sarah found this meal. It was not well advertised. So we got it. So I was like a week behind Sarah's bread brain. But as soon as I bought it, then of course I'm like, I got to find the grain. I got to find all these different places. We don't want to pay the shipping. How can I get all of the things and learn how to do it? And we were just both insane bread brains because then I was like, oh, I'm going to at least make muffins for my kids because we have constipation problems. I've had stomach problems. I was doing sourdough at the time with regular flour. And so all of those things were kind of wrapped up. And we just became obsessively bread brains trying everything.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, I was even telling customer service reps about fresh flour, during the waiting times on hold on calls. I'm like, yeah, so this isn't working, but have you heard of fresh flour? Do you struggle with constipation or irregularity? I know that's weird, but I'm here to help you. I mean, I have great icebreakers, and
She was bringing bread on the airplane.
yeah, I take bread on planes.
Why were people accepting that? I have lots of questions.
They have
I don't
masks
know.
on, but they'll take my bread. It makes no sense, but they loved it. So, yeah. So, okay. So that's that was how we started. And we were totally hooked. And we saw just miraculous health improvements for things like Kira. Kira's been severely gluten sensitive and gluten intolerant since she was a little girl, hospitalized multiple times.
I remember laying on the floor, just my stomach, and my mom would come in, put heat packs on. I didn't realize that it was the gluten for a really long time. I thought it might be the meat too. I had acid reflux, throwing up, opening my car, throwing up in high school. It wasn't just acid and my tummy hurt. It was kind of embarrassing, throw up on the basketball court, kind of embarrassing kind of situation. Just couldn't control it. And then I was hospitalized for multiple days. And I was on PPI medications, which is terrible for you. I get that. But there was it was either that or burn my throat. I couldn't find. And I tried low FODMAP. I had tried all of the things. I thought sourdough might help. That's why I was doing that. But it didn't. It wasn't there was nothing that was pushing me over the limit. I obviously, I just started taking magnesium. That helped, but I could never get off of the medicine. I just would try to get off and then have this huge flare up and be hospitalized. So it was kind of scary to try to wean off, but no one was willing to help me get off. So I felt I had to be my own advocate and figure it out how to get there. So in that regard, fresh flour is just such a gift. I thought it would help me. I didn't know that my body needs the digestive enzymes. If I don't eat fresh flour, I'm high maintenance traveling now. Sorry, it just is true, because if I don't eat fresh flour for multiple days, even on vacation, then my acid reflux comes back, and it's just not worth it to me to not have it. And so, after a month and a half, I was able to get off of medicine that I'd been on for 12 plus years, 12 to 15 years, and could never get off of. And so, we were I'm just like thrilled about
We were
this.
thrilled.
Like how can I can nurse my baby without like my stomach feeling bloated and just like I want to cry every night. Like what is this freedom that I feel without chronic pain? I almost didn't know what
Yeah.
it felt like to not be in like even good days before. I now realize I still had like, stomach pain. It just wasn't as bad as like being hospitalized, not able to like whatever. So I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm just why we were so bread brain and like so ecstatic about it, because it just like God used it to transform our health. And we're super grateful. Like how can every friend and family member, like everybody's different. This is not medical advice.
Not medical advice.
But I just feel like I need to say that. But like, that's why we're so passionate, because it's like we just had this catalyst of like we feel so much better is actually satisfying us. And why does no one know about it? Like you can't buy this on the store shelves.
That's right.
How can we help people? It's our like like God uniquely gave us engineering minds of like lean. I don't know if you Lean Six Sigma.
Yeah, do y'all know Lean and Six Sigma? Do you know those certifications? Or
No, you'll have to explain.
Nerdy engineering
Super
stuff,
nerdy, but
like
wonderful.
efficiency based, like how can we do this? Like what's the roadblock here? How can we remove it to make it easier, faster, less like wasted time? That's like the world I love.
So like an optimization problem.
Yes,
Optimization.
love it.
That's exactly
like
right.
My love language is optimization.
Okay.
Yes.
So-
And so we bring that engineered approach to make fresh flour baking as easy and streamlined as possible. So it's not hard. That's our whole goal, is it has to be easy enough that, my dad and brothers who have never baked, they can do this. And actually they do. So, well, my mom bakes for my dad, but my brothers do bake now with fresh flour. So
Yeah, that's why we love it. And that's why that's like our target is like how, like our friends and family that have young kids or that like have never baked before. Like our passion is to be able to get this like nutritional superfood into their hands. Like you're not too busy. You have enough time, you have enough skills. And so that's like,
well, now that's different than when we started.
That's
right?
true. That's
So
true.
yeah, so we were baking for people we loved all the time. Like I actually had a coworker with stage 4 cancer. She wasn't even able to eat hardly anything. It was very restrictive when I started. And I actually called at the time the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic and talked to the nutritionist in their cancer centers to ask, can cancer patients have whole grains, or what would be the cautions? Because again, we're not doctors, we're not medically trained, but my friend was so sick, this coworker, and they said, yeah, whole grains are great. So I called her and I said, I'm going to bake you some banana bread and you don't have to try it, but I'm just going to leave it for you. And here's what I believe from what I've found. And she texted me the next morning and she said, Sarah, I had the best day since before my diagnosis. I ate all the banana bread my husband did. She's like, I had a bowel movement. She said, which we've been literally praying for. And she ended up getting a meal and we helped her get set up. And all that she took with her to the hospital for her surgeries and treatment were muffins made with fresh milled flour, because that was the one thing that gave her relief. And so it was stories like that that just absolutely fueled us to tell more people and to be baking more and more and more. But we couldn't bake enough. We couldn't feed everybody. We had to teach them how to do it. And it was really complicated to get started. I don't know. There are like thousands and thousands of varieties of wheat, and they all taste different and they bake different. Some of them work for recipes and some of them don't. And there is so much to learn that it can be really overwhelming. And then even once you learn about the varieties, the quality of grains varies dramatically between vendors. And so some of them that are lower cost, there's a lot of chaff. You have to clean that out. But, obviously like price can be a limiting factor for other people. And so there's just so many different variables to consider. And we were spending like 9 to 12 hours per person just helping them get started. And so we had to create an easy way for people to conveniently and sustainably get the nutrients of fresh flour without having to devote their life to this. It had to fit into their busyness, not change everything about who they are and how they approach food. Right. And so that's when we got together and we said, we are going to research the grains. We actually met with milling scientists to study how commercial mills make their flour and what the different baking properties are and how to get baked goods that are longer, like moist longer, for example, and extra soft. But with the added benefit of we don't take anything away and we don't add any toxins. We're combining the best attributes of targeted grain varieties to get that exceptional flavor and premium baking performance, along with nutritional diversity, because now you've got a blend of whole grains rather than just eating a single grain. So that's probably
very
more
cool.
information than what you said, but we had to do that to simplify the process. Because, I mean, my family would say, well, I bought hard red wheat, but the bread didn't work, or my kids don't like how it tastes. It's like, well, the kind of hard red you bought is actually bitter and it's low gluten and it's high moisture. And so it's not going to work. And I wouldn't like that either. Or I've got hard white, but my bread dried out right away. Yeah, that's because hard white has these attributes. And so we did a ton of research, a ton of experiments, which thanks to our engineering background, we know how to do design of experiments. We can test all these parameters, and we were able to make blends that very closely match the baking performance of the top commercial flours, but get all of the whole grain nutrients and none of the toxins. So no glyphosate, none of the synthetic nutrients like folic acid and that sort of thing. And so that's the grain side.
And that's why we do that, is just to like make it simpler, so you don't have to learn. Like, there are plenty of places to go learn about how to do that.
Absolutely.
And that already existed. What we felt like the missing piece, and why we're kind of like in this like niche now, is to like, with really a passion for the busy moms, like all of the people that don't have time to do the research or desire, they just want the health benefits. And so we felt like, how can we make it simpler so that you can enjoy the benefits and the taste, like kid approved, not just like eat it, it's healthy. Like, no one wants to be the mom doing that.
Although I will warn you that if you start baking Unsifted, you might raise little bread snobs.
That is true.
We hear that all the time. They're like, it's wonderful, but now my kids won't eat anything but Unsifted. So that's the risk. But we simplified the grains. And then back to my background, I'm a box mix baker. If I read a recipe and it says cream, butter, and sugar, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know if that means 2 minutes or 12 minutes. And so Kira has taught me a lot, but we have a really unique approach to our fresh flour recipes that we make to bring in that user experience, as well as kind of the novice questions with the pro tip solutions. And so we have step-by-step instructions on all of our recipes so that regardless of baking experience, you can succeed with unsifted fresh flour. And that's been a really big key to our customers' success as well, to make it approachable.
They've actually been like using them for homeschooling, like their kids, like learning how to cook, things like that, because they're like helpful. I know the people can't see this, but like, if you can, it's like, on the front, it's like all of the things. This is what we found. Like, normally it's, like she said, cream the butter or add this, or so we try to like say what those things are, but then give step by step, add this, do this, with like very detailed, just so that like you don't have to follow all those details. If you already know what you're doing, you could just look at the front and just do it. But
it caters to both audiences in a very approachable way. But the cool thing, and this speaks to my perfectionist personality. Again, before I was milling, there was a lot of shame. Baking was stressful. I would level cups of flour. I would check the recipe like 10 times before adding the ingredient. I mean, I was afraid of baking. It was stressful to be perfect, right? And then it would still flop. We had to eliminate that with Unsifted. And so all of our recipes have flexibility built in. There's no leveling required. And we actually provide options for them to tailor it to their family's preferences, so they can pull those levers as much or as little as they choose. But something cool that we did is we do all of our grain measurements rather than flour measurements. So it's calculated based off of how many cups of flour the Wonder Mill makes per cup of grain. And so you just scoop your grain, pour it into your mill, push start, and 10 seconds later, you use all of that flour in the recipe. There's no leveling. There's no measuring of flour.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely, I mean, I'm hoping we're going to talk about that later, but the conversion of the recipes, as someone who, I've now had my grain mill for 1 year, and I'm still learning about it. And but anyway, we'll talk about that further for sure. Right, Corey?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I actually, can I ask a question? I wanted to pause you guys for a second because you talked about all of the research that you had done about the flour. And I'm really curious to know, like, what did you guys find as far as whole grains? Did you happen to, you mentioned glyphosate. So it sounds like maybe did you find information on glyphosate in grains? How did you come to, like, why grains and fresh milling them? Like, what is the research saying about fresh milled grains?
Yeah, let's talk about that. And there's a lot to that, like lots of layers. And we didn't find that it was like, it's in this book for a little bit and this book, but then like you couldn't find the sources that people were. And as engineers, we're like, we want to provide the sources so you can like also decide for yourself, like how that study was conducted.
Yeah, there's a lot of claims, but they don't necessarily cite the source to be able to see the validity of, the research. And so we want everything to be research backed and vetted so that we had confidence that we could believe it, right?
So if you go to unsifted.com, there is a learn more page, and we've like tried to lay out like the history of flour and then like how nutrients degrade over 3 days of milling, and like here's some research, here's the vitamin E and research and all of that on there. So if you kind of want a full, more of like a storyline view with all the research linked, you can go there, because the research is super important to making a decision like this for your family.
Yeah. One of the things that was really eye-opening for me was this concept that whole grains are meant to survive, and that includes your digestive tract. So the example that they give in the fresh flour community is, if you eat corn, the next day, you ate corn, right? Pretty similar. And that means your body didn't get access to the nutrients that were inside. That protective outer layer is protecting the nutrients from your digestive tract. Well, the same is true of wheat or barley or farro or any, salads that have whole grains on them. You're not getting access to all the nutrients. You actually need to mill the grain to crush the grain open and expose more of the surface area of that grain for your body to access and extract those nutrients. And so there's a ton of research about even the size of fiber, providing variety in the size of fiber and the type of fiber, because different types of fiber cause your body to create different types of bile. And bile is like a toxin magnet to help you get rid of the things that your body doesn't need. And so that's something that we do again with our recipes. We vary the coarseness of the fiber, so we're getting that nutrient diversity, as well as the blended grains. Each grain has different strengths in terms of its nutrients. And so by blending, we are optimizing the nutrient profile to give more of that diversity, which you don't get with a single grain, that you're sourcing at home.
And I also thought when we were doing the research, something that was compelling to me at that point was like, I just thought, why would my aunt had just like milled, maybe I shouldn't, she would mill a lot ahead, which is great. It's like better. But I didn't know until I started reading about, there's some like rat studies and dog studies that were really like intriguing to me. They would, basically give 3 different groups. So like fresh milled, and then the fresh milled flour about 15 days later, and then like all purpose flour. And they do this to like rats and dogs. And specifically like the rats, after what's equivalent to 100 human years, they became infertile, eating both the 15-day-old fresh flour and the all purpose flour. So in my mind, like eliminating, I don't know, think about it like, I don't know if I'm talking too nerdy. I don't know. Anyways, I'll just continue. Both of those, something happened between the fresh flour day 1 and 15 days. And the dogs, they got like ADHD, and some of them died. They refused to eat the all-purpose flour. Like they were like starving. They had digestive disruption.
Diarrhea.
Yeah. Which, how much of this stuff do we see today? And then there's also stories, I get really excited about this. Sorry. In like other countries where like during war times that they were like, stop throwing away all of this like bran and germ, like you need to eat it all. And so they would mandate that because they didn't want food being wasted anymore. And you know what? People stopped having GI problems, and I have like lifelong GI problems. So both like those things like perked my ear. Like, what is it for those years that people were eating the entire grain? They had less digestive problems. They weren't going and having all of these things. And so something between day 1 and day 15 clearly made a difference to these populations of animals. And interestingly, I've heard you guys talk, I think we feel similarly about like 3-letter organizations. One of the first leaders, Dr. Harvey Wiley, before it was actually the FDA, he was the head of it, and he was adamantly opposed to white flour.
Yeah, commercial milling.
To commercial
roller
milling.
mills and sifting.
Yes, he wanted that to be considered an adulterated food. He lost out on that argument to lobbyists, but he claimed, and these are all like rabbit holes that we went down during Bread Brain. Like, this is why we became so excited about it. But it's like, okay, so what exactly is he saying? He's pointing to the oxidation of the lipids that happens after like some amount of time. So because once the bran breaks up, that bran hits with the enzymes and it starts oxidizing those lipids. And his whole premise is that those oxidized lipids are worse for you than like, they're actually hurting you because now your liver has to process those. Whereas if you did it fresh, day 1, day 2, like those aren't oxidized. And so now your body's actually using the vitamin E to help fight. So it's like you're either getting the good or you're getting like nothing. And
that is such an important point, because I feel like especially within the fresh flour community, and again, not to be critical of how whatever anyone's doing to meet their goals specifically, but it is not widely known that 15-day mark and how drastic of a nutritional difference it is, and also detrimental difference it can be. And so a lot of people ask us, can I buy flour that's milled fresh, organic, milled fresh somewhere else and have it shipped to me? Well, if you can't get it and bake with it really within 3 days of milling, you're losing up to 90% of the nutritional potential. And if it's been 2 weeks, it could be more detrimental to your health with that lipid oxidation.
Is it better than something on the floor?
Probably.
We can do probably, because it doesn't have the glyphosate.
Yep, probably.
And a lot of the toxins, but that's where you just start. There's not a lot of research on the specifics other than those few things that we talked about, which is why we're such huge advocates of like, making it simple so you can just do it right when you need it. It's not this like big task that's like, oh, I have to go mill the flour. It's not like it takes
easy.
On the one, it's like
Depends
12 seconds for 1 cup of flour. It is like not a big time commitment. When I make a triple batch, which is like 6 loaves, it takes like 1.5 minutes total. So it's super fast in the Wonder Mill.
And again, based on goals, our goal is to maximize the flavor and the nutrition. And so that is at its peak seconds after you've milled the flour. And so you want to mill right before you bake with it. And that gives the most opportunity for those nutrients to survive the baking process. And there's actually protective starches. We've researched this to help those nutrients be protected during baking, because obviously your oven does get hot.
You lose some, like they say, like 5 to 30, depending on the nutrient specifically percent.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into that, like what you're baking and all of that. But regardless, you want to maximize the nutrients that are going into that baked good initially to optimize how many of them, come out of the oven, right? And so by milling and then waiting to bake with the flour, you are significantly, like exponentially decreasing that nutritional opportunity. And then again, we are nervous of the 14-day mark. So, and that counts even if you freeze it. Like freezing the flour can delay the flour from going rancid, but it doesn't necessarily keep the nutrients from being lost. There's actually research on, depending on the type of food and the state of that food, whether freezing is beneficial or not. Now, that's a contrast to baked bread. So you don't want to freeze the flour regularly. You don't want that to be your regular source of nutrients. But there's some benefits if you freeze freshly milled bread.
Yeah, surprisingly, if you like, frozen bread actually lowers the glycemic index. And so like frozen and then toasted, frozen, thawed, and then toasted is like the best way to eat your bread. It lowers like 60% IUAC, like that's a gluten.
It becomes like a resistant starch, right?
Yeah, it changes the shape of the starch just so that your body can actually like handle it better. And so that's like perfect for like batch baking, making 2 things of muffins for basically the same amount of time, putting half of them in the freezer. It's just like work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Right.
For my French toast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So there's a lot that we could say about research, but that's like the tip of the iceberg.
Well, yeah. So let's do let's go into like the history and like why what's in the grocery store is not
Yeah. What is the difference between fresh flour and commercial flour, essentially? So, like, what you guys are milling on a daily basis, what Corey and I are milling, versus the bags of flour at the grocery store, even if it's at like a health food store.
Well, yeah, like, or even if it's you touched on like if it's a whole wheat bag of flour at the store, it'll, I'm guessing that it is beyond that 15-day mark. But, so, you don't have to talk about that again, but like what is maybe an all-purpose bag? What is the difference between what's in all-purpose and what's in, a freshly milled batch of flour?
And let's also make sure we cover bleached and enriched. What does that mean?
Oh, those maybe just do one at a time.
Okay.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Maybe terms first, because there's a lot of different definitions on the terms, like fresh flour versus like what do we consider versus like there's better.
Sure, go ahead and define whatever terms you feel like need to be defined.
Yeah. So again, fresh flour is used broadly, but the way we define it and the optimized nutrient levels means that you have taken organic whole grains, you have ground them into a flour with everything retained. Nothing is removed, nothing is sifted, and you milled it. So grinding, milling, same thing. You've milled it at a temperature below about 115 degrees, because that means it doesn't cause the enzymes to denature. So 100% of the grain is transferred into the flour. Nothing is sifted. It's made into flour at a low temperature, less than 115 degrees. And you've baked with it really within, as soon as possible, but within 3 days of milling it. Ideally, as soon as possible. So the factor is the components of the grain being present, the temperature that those grains and flour are experiencing, and the time between the flour being milled and it being baked with that make it fresh.
So the roller mills for the flour, with that in mind, the flour that's at the store, the way that they're able to mass market it is a roller mill. And those roller mills get to high temperatures. They also help speed up the aging process using higher temperatures. And so the problem with both of those is the high temperature. So now you don't have the enzymes. Like it's like asking your body, here, digest this gluten. No wonder we can't digest it, because we're not giving it the component that it needs to digest it. Like God made this grain with an enzyme to digest the hard to digest part. But when you strip that, it's like now your body's going to have trouble. And so all of the flour.
This is exactly what happens with raw milk.
No, I'm like literally, I'm thinking of all these other things, raw milk, fats, like what else is on the list? Everything that's industrialized and in
God
the middle.
is brilliant.
Yeah.
His design is so good for whole foods. He gives us the component that our bodies need to properly break down those proteins, to break down the gluten. Those are the enzymes that are in the grain. But yeah, they don't stand a chance in the commercial milling process with the temperatures and time.
So then you're missing the enzymes and because of the high temperatures, also those lipids, any lipids that remain, those are now oxidized. And so now your body's having even more trouble. And so both of those are problems. And that bran, I wish, this is the picture that we always use, our little watermark, but there's an outside,
so helpful. Yes.
outside bran layer that's the fiber, insoluble, soluble. What's great about this, even compared to like fruits and vegetables, is that like all fiber is good. What's cool about this, when it's not the grocery store shelf kind, when it actually has the enzymes and the like nutrient antioxidants that are not taken away, it can actually travel all the way down to your colon, to your gut. And that bran is embedded with antioxidants. Like K-State's even has some research on specifically, and that is how it helps. Like it helps with transit time, obviously, but also that bran has the antioxidants buried in it. And so now they're actually making it all the way to your gut, which is different than other types of fiber and super helpful. There's like tons of research on whole grains reducing all-cause cancer. It's on our website. You can see the link. Reducing like
colon
cancer, a whole bunch of specific ones, but even like 16% decrease in all-cause mortality of cancer just by eating more whole grains. And the fiber is a key aspect, and that's what's in the bran. So
what you're saying is that the fiber that's in the bran, specifically that specific fiber, rather than just fruit fiber or other fiber, is going to make it through all of the upper tracts of digestion, all through the stomach, all through all of the intestines, and get as far down as it can possibly go. So it's helping to bring or eliminate things through the whole body rather than just the upper parts of the digestion, which is a problem with modern food, is that it's just kind of being broken down right away and not making it through the whole body.
Right. That is exactly right. Yes. Great explanation.
Okay, so we've got the bran, and then the next part is I'm letting you guys fill it in.
Yeah, germ.
Yeah, so it has all of the good lipids when they're not oxidized. So you got vitamin E, which, I mean, you can just like type that into Google. You see tons of things that it's helpful for. It's actually an antioxidant that's super helpful for your liver. We have really, we don't want to, when do we want to go down that path? There's
an amazing testimonial from someone who we didn't know, but now she's become one of our good friends. She's a small intestine transplant survivor. Super, super rare, major health challenges from that surgery, including her liver health. And there's a pretty miraculous story with Unsifted fresh flour baking and how God used that in her journey to help heal her liver. But if we have time, we can go down.
Go ahead and give it.
Yeah, share the testimonial.
Okay. So I think I mentioned when I first started milling, I went to my annual physical a month later. I do very comprehensive blood work, and my doctor came out. She said, "You must be eating real foods. Your liver is twice as healthy as it's been in 10 years. And
there's a lot of research showing the liver, but this is like just it's different to like see the real person, like, oh, that's not just them. It's like,
yeah, it happened to me. And I wasn't trying I didn't have a bad liver. I had a good liver. It still got better. But anyway, so when Kira and I launched Unsifted in 2020, there's an About Us page. You can go and read about it. But I wrote about the blood work and about my liver health improving. And there's a local artist in Kansas City. Her name's Dawn. We absolutely love her. But she came across Unsifted because her neighbor started following us on Instagram. And she happened to read my testimony about her liver and thought maybe it could work for her. So some of the background, she'd had a small intestine transplant. She survived that. It's a very rare surgery and very complicated recovery. But leading up to the surgery, she had to be on IV nutrition for 9 months. So nothing by mouth for 9 months.
Oh my gosh.
She is... Y'all, you should seriously follow her. Dawn saying she is the most inspiring person to follow, strong believer. But anyway, as part of a consequence of being on that IV nutrition, her liver tanked. So it's been in the red for, it would have been like 6 or so years now, 6 or 7. I'm not totally clear on the timing off the top of my head, but she was doing everything you can imagine. She was on a very restrictive diet that the Mayo Clinic had given her. She was homebound. She couldn't leave her home because she didn't have an immune system. She was taking many medications. And in spite of the very restricted diet and following this procedure to a T, perfectly, her liver just wasn't improving. It was very unhealthy. So she read my story and thought maybe it could work for her. And she bought our starter kit. She had never baked before. She was a non-baker, and she was able to dive right in, and she started eating freshly milled products every single day. Even though her doctors told her no gluten, she was eating Unsifted every day. And did she start with pretzel bites or tortillas? I can't remember if it was pretzel bites or tortillas, but those are the two go-tos for her. Every week she would eat these, or every day she'd eat these. And within a month, she gets her blood work done every single month. She texted me and said, "You won't believe it, but my liver improved." It was something like 200 points it improved. And I don't remember the scale, but it was like a dramatic improvement. She's like, if I'm stay on this path, like I'm going to be in the green. And so we were super excited, just thanking the Lord. She kept milling and doing this for the second month. Sure enough, it jumped way up again, and she was almost in the green. And we just... it has just been such a blessing to watch her journey. And so she actually didn't share about Unsifted at first because she she didn't know if it would work for her. And she really wasn't, she wasn't an advocate for fresh flour. She didn't know anything about baking. But once she got her blood work and was feeling better, and her husband, his blood work was improving as well, she got on Instagram and shared her story. And these followers who had been with her for years watching her health journey, they knew right away, like, this was the real deal. And so that's actually a big part of our story of the growth of Unsifted, was her sharing her testimonial, and many of her followers with health challenges, coming over to Unsifted from the hope of fresh flour helping their bodies to heal as well. So that's one example of something that we're just super grateful for, and truly all glory to God for the gift of whole grains.
Yeah, and because it has the actual vitamin E and all of those like nutritious things in it from the germ, from the bran,
Yeah,
it
I don't
can
know.
actually...
Have we said 40 of the 44?
No. Okay, it has like 40 of the 44. It's debated on what the 44 are, but like in general, there are 40 out of the 44. There are so many nutrients. There's only 5 that are higher in store-bought flour, but that's because of the fortification. They're forced to be put back, and they're put back as like folic acid, which it's not the
Right.
same. And
So pause there for a second, though.
Yeah.
Explain what that means, 40 of the 44.
So there are 44
Key
key essential nutrients that your body needs to thrive every day. You will start
it's like vitamins, minerals, protein,
zinc, magnesium, proteins, different like vitamin A, vitamin E, all of those things your body needs at some level to survive. And this has 40 out of the 44.
What is this? It means like fresh milled flour.
So like a single grain of wheat, a kernel of wheat, has 40 of the 44 key essential nutrients. So those vitamins and minerals and protein and iron and all of that. And when you mill it into fresh flour, if it's unsifted, nothing removed, fresh flour, low temp, baked the same day, the 40 of the 44 nutrients are being transferred from the flour into your baked goods, including those active enzymes that help your body to properly digest the gluten. So I like to joke that my cinnamon roll is my multivitamin, because it is.
Yeah. And so that's what those nutrients are, what enable stories like Sarah's, like mine, like my body was missing some of those nutrients. My body was missing the enzymes. And so like giving it that in like in a form that it could actually accept has been like transformational for me. And those are just like some of the pieces that like proves, or that are the foundation for all of these studies that show liver health improving for Dawn's story, for Sarah's, for mine. It's like, it's because it's a complete whole food, and you're getting all of those 40 out of 44 nutrients because of the bran and the germ and the endosperm. Whereas if you go buy it wrapping back to your question, if you go buy something at the store, if it's white flour, it's just the endosperm. So you're not getting the germ, you're not getting the bran, all of those like healthful things that we just talked about, you're not getting them. And it's too hot. So you're milled at too hot of a temperature. So you're not getting the enzyme too. So you're basically just throwing your body under the bus, saying like, good luck, hope you can get it. Yeah. It's just hard for your body if you have any troubles. And even if you go with the whole wheat, I always hated whole wheat because I thought it was bitter and dry. And it was, because it's a high temperature. And
the oils are removed.
And the oils are removed from those temperatures. They sift it all off, and then they just throw some back to meet the like percentages that they need. So you're not
Whoa. So if you're buying whole wheat flour from the grocery store, what they're doing is they're sifting out the bran and the germ after they've milled it. And then
So this is actually an important point too about whole wheat versus whole grain. Do you want
go for it?
Okay. So there's a difference between whole wheat and whole grain. Whole wheat is actually a marketing term. There's no legal connotation. I could say that this water is 100% whole wheat.
You wouldn't, because
I wouldn't, because it's obviously a lie. But
they're going to lie to you when it isn't obvious.
It's a marketing term. Whole wheat is a marketing term. And so
it's greenwashing, essentially.
It's greenwashing.
It is greenwashing. Now, I'm not saying that every time someone says whole wheat that they're trying to mislead you. However, legally, it doesn't have anything to do with the bran and the germ when you see whole wheat. It's just made from wheat, and most often.
Usually they would just throw back some portion of that.
Because whole grain.
Okay.
So that's different than whole grain. So whole grain, there's actually a certification process, and legally you can't say that you're whole grain without going through this certification to show that at least some portion of that bran is added back in, and there's a required percentage. But there's a lot of nuance.
But it's still not even the full thing.
That's right. It's not the full thing. You're still missing the germ, and it might not be the bran from the grain that was milled. It could be bran from something else. And
It depends on the integrity of the miller. Like
Yes.
we're talking about store-bought,
Sure,
like
sure.
big brand commercial.
Big brand,
Yeah, which I'm pausing so you could cut this if you want. But we had a food inspector come and inspect our warehouse. She does like food inspections, and she would not tell us who, but she said one of her inspections, they took her into a room stacked with paper. She said, "Why am I in this room?" And they're like, "Oh, this is the fiber that we add to the flour
So gross.
to meet the fiber content." They literally shredded the paper and we're putting it into flour. Now, I don't know the brand. I don't have a reason to not believe this lady. She's a food inspector, but there's a lot that we can be misled by with marketing. So whole wheat.
Okay. Whoa. So, no. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I walk into the grocery store and I want a whole wheat loaf of bread. It says whole wheat on the package. And you're saying it is likely, it's possible that it is not whole wheat.
Yes.
Correct. You'd want to be sure you understand the integrity of the person making that.
Yes.
Whoa.
But it's not even just the integrity of the person making it. It's the integrity of the miller milling the
whole
Yeah,
supply
the
chain.
whole supply chain.
Yeah,
And
the
not
whole
only
supply
that,
chain.
but even if let's say it was truly what we would hope whole wheat was, unsifted, good, nothing removed. What's the likelihood that that vendor baked that loaf of bread within 14 days of milling that whole wheat flour? It's pretty low, which we talked about the consequences of day 15 forward. And so I would want to get confidence not only in the integrity of the milling process, that nothing was removed, that the temperatures were low, but also that that product was baked within 15 days to avoid some of those consequences of the lipid oxidation.
So when my son was in first grade, his class went on a tour of a local bakery, and I set the tour up because I wanted to go on it.
Oh, smart.
But I remember going in there, and this is when I was first learning about Weston A. Price and Whole Foods and like all of this stuff. So I was new to a lot of this, and we go into this bakery, and they have and it's a small bakery because it's in the DC metropolitan area. It's a small area or a small building in a strip mall, and a huge portion of this bakery is taken up by their in-house milling flour mill.
Yep.
And their grain storage. And I'm looking at it going like, this seems like an awful lot of work for a little, bakery to be doing. But what you're saying now makes so that they obviously, understood that and we're being really true to their mission. And
That's right.
that's fascinating.
Yeah. And actually, this concept of freshly milled flour being baked with right away in California, that is catching on like wildfire. There are bakeries popping up. I mean, they're premium bakeries, but they've got their mills, in-house. They're milling it fresh. They're not removing anything, and they are charging an absolute premium. And people are coming with many health ailments to only eat this bread. Many people that are gluten sensitive or gluten intolerant are able to eat organically sourced, unsifted fresh flour because of those nutrients and enzymes and the lack of the toxins. So, it's pretty fascinating.
This is just so fascinating to me because, at the beginning, I already shared that I'm not really a baker, not really into like the grains thing. I'm of the health camp of like, I'm not convinced grains are really that good for you. Okay. Full disclosure. Corey knows that.
Absolutely.
And so I always just thought, okay, if you're going to bake, just, buy organic flour from the grocery store and do it at home kind of thing. And it wasn't until a year ago that I was like, all right, yeah, I'll do the grain mill thing, whatever. And I've been like half-heartedly doing it, but not really understanding the depth of the nutritional profile, the importance, like you're saying, of the enzymes. It didn't I didn't really grasp the concept. I was just doing it because it was,
Yeah. Well,
Because
and
it's cool.
it's cool.
You're doing
It's
it to be in the cool team.
it
That's
is.
okay.
And now I'm blown away. No, I'm honestly, I'm so intrigued. I'm thinking about all of these. I mean, what comes to my mind is you walk into a grocery store and all the baked products that you see everywhere.
Yes.
And all I can think is like, I'm kind of extreme. Corey knows this. Poison, 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 poison.
Yeah. We're on the same page. I'm like, that's toxic. Don't eat that. It's dead flour.
Wow.
Yeah, it really is a shift in perspective because for so long I thought, well, homemade automatically means healthier.
Yeah.
If I bought the flour and made it at home, it must be better for me. And
I do think that is true to some degree.
better. It is better.
Yeah.
But I was changing, like swapping out the sugars, and I never even thought that you could swap out flour. That didn't even cross my mind.
Well, because you really can't. If
Yeah,
you are
Yeah,
if your only options are grocery stores, then you really can't.
that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. But that's really kind of like back to our goal of like, how do we make, the nutrition is so well researched. And the cool thing is it's not just the relief, like the immediate relief from gluten sensitivity, gluten intolerance, bloating, all of that. It's the long-term benefits of getting those nutrients from the whole grains consistently. Like if you get 3+ servings of whole grains per day, it's just astounding, like helping to prevent dementia and Alzheimer's, reduced ADHD, helps with eczema, prevention of obesity. Kira mentioned the reduced risk of all-cause mortality, literally every way that you could die.
And that's like independent of waist size, independent of like lifestyle, like all these things, like, and their cohort studies with like, they're linked on our website. We're not just like,
go check out the sources. Always trust but verify, we like to say. But it's
your own research, which apparently is a red flag thing to say now.
Yeah.
True.
What about, okay, so curious, Kira, you mentioned before that you did look into sourdough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in the health community, there is this idea that the phytic acid in the grain is detrimental. It binds to the minerals and blocks the absorption of the minerals in the body. And so this is one of the reasons why in Nourishing Traditions, we talk about soaking our grains to be able to neutralize that phytic acid, and why sourdough is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So Corey and I have had a debate for the past month. It's just like a question that we can't seem to get answered, which is, if you are freshly milling, do you also still need to ferment your grains? Do we still need to do sourdough? And it's totally okay if you guys don't know the answer to this. We're posing this to so many people.
We literally have asked every single person that bakes that we know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're getting different answers from all sorts of different people.
Yeah.
So it's been a really interesting conversation. And we'd love to hear y'all's
what are your opinions?
Perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I was doing sourdough with like organic, unbleached, whatever flour before, thinking that would like help my gut just because like I needed the fermentation. And it was like better. Again, there's a scale, right? Like there's a lot of steps toward better. But then like what's better, what's best, how can you maximize? What are you trying to maximize? All of those questions are important. There's kind of a couple different beliefs on phytic acid in like research in what we've found. Mm-hmm. So like I hear that. I was worried about that myself with the soaking, fermenting, all of that. I thought I was going to have to do that to my grains, and I was going to buy sprouted grains for that reason because I had so much GI problems. I was just sure I wasn't going to be able to eat it like straight out. So that was my intention. I was going to do sourdough, switch my sourdough over to the fresh flour, which I did. And like I was going to have to go down that route with soaking all of that to be able to tolerate it, because I couldn't tolerate sourdough regularly. Just like body, I don't know what you want to call it. Like I just started eating regular fresh flour that was not soaked. And after a month and a half, I was off of my medications. So like my body handled that really well. I didn't need the sourdough at the time. And so like we do soak like for short amounts of time, our bread that helps like,
with a lot of things.
Helps with a lot of things. But we don't go down the whole soaking route. There's like some beliefs that like that can actually, the phytic acid can actually help draw out toxins. So it like, I just don't know if there's like a one size fits all thing, because like depending on what your body makeup is, do you have like a hidden fungus? Do you have a hidden infection? Like what's going on inside your body that you know or don't know about? I think it can just vary so much, like for what you need specifically based on, so like if you're eating it and it's not like, we've had honestly not very many people, most of our customers are gluten intolerant and not very many of them have not been able to eat it.
I think we've had 3 in 5 years, and we have a lot of customers that haven't had gluten in over 10 years because they're so reactive to it, or their children.
And they're not eating even sourdough.
No, they're not doing sourdough.
This is just fresh flour. So I can't, like with all of those data points, I just can't believe, like with evidence that we've seen, that you have to soak every grain to get the benefits. Like I've had like milia, like I don't know if you know what that is. It's like little white dots that had them all over my legs growing up. Turns out it's like a vitamin A deficiency, like a bunch of different things. Grain has vitamin A. It's even better, right, than the beta carotenes and other plants, because beta carotenes only convert like 6%, like once
depending on the body too. Yeah.
Vitamin E. So this is like actual vitamin A and beta carotenes. So like I had forgotten about that, honestly. And then I was talking to this lady online whose daughter has very similar situations, like health saga to me. And she was like, well, how is that? And I'm like, oh, I still have this patch and it's gone. Like, oh my gosh, I just totally have been living like every summer. They just like flare up and I like feel like it look like I have pimples down my arms. Just like cover them up, but they're gone. And I'm like, what? Like they basically, I mean, I tried all the dermatology things and they would never go away. And so I just can't, for my own body, like my body is like absorbing it, and I'm not doing sourdough. I do sourdough, but I didn't for like 2 years. And so I don't know. Those are just data points for your ongoing debate.
Yeah. See, this is the conclusion that I've come to as well. With as many people we've talked to about this, is that that potentially phytic acid is not a problem. But soaking and sprouting and sourdough are not a bad thing. So if that's what you want to do, then do it. Or if that's how your body, can handle or does well, then use that,
Yeah.
But I do think that those are also a barrier to entry, which is one thing that, Christine and I have talked about a bunch, because she's so intimidated by grains. And part of the reason you're so intimidated by grains is because you feel like they absolutely have to be treated in this extra way.
Yeah. There's several different steps that you have to take before you can properly consume them. Macienda makes nixtamalized heirloom corn masa. They work with small farmers all throughout Mexico, and they use traditional agricultural practices. And so we like Macienda because they sell their corn masa in different colors and, throughout the US, or you can purchase directly from their website. They have blue corn, yellow corn, red, and white. And this is so that you can make your own tortillas at home. And you can use the code MAM, MAM 10 for 10% off. And if you don't want to make your own tortillas, they also sell tortillas on their website. So it's macienda.com, and the code is MAM10 for 10% off.
All right, our second code that we're going to share with you is from Seatopia. They sell sushi grade and snap frozen fish. So it's frozen at the peak of freshness, and it's all clean, certified clean seafood that is mercury safe and microplastic tested. So check out their website, seatopia.com. Is that right?
It's Seatopia Fish.
Fish.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know about y'all, but like I got overwhelmed by all of that really easily. I felt like I had to be really perfect and memorize everything, and it couldn't fit in my life. And I would actually have defaulted to commercial flour over that. And it like made the situation worse for me. And there's just this like food freedom that comes from fresh flour baking. And certainly, some people probably would benefit from sprouting or from souring in their specific situations, or even in a specific season of your life, for a season, not forever. But we have not encountered that in our 5 years. We've got thousands of customers across like 47 states right now. And so we just don't have the firsthand data points to really validate that the souring or the sprouting is essential to get really amazing relief and longer term benefits.
This might be controversial too. There's a difference between putting dead flour, let's just call it that, dead flour into sourdough.
Mm-hmm.
That is very helpful, right? Because it doesn't have the enzymes to help your body digest it. So you got to do something to help your body digest it. But it's a very different conversation to talk about putting a live flour like into bread or a live flour into sourdough. It's like you actually are holding something to put into it versus just like a kind of a zero pass through, just like it's just starch to like make the bread work. But here you're providing the starch and the nutrients. So like it's not really a comparison with like dead flour. This may not be the best way to say it. Commercial flour, sourdough.
I like dead flour. Use that.
Yeah. Or sourdough with like the actual nutrients. Like those are totally different ball games. This is like the sourdough with nutrients is way lower glycemic index, easier to digest. You're actually getting and absorbing the nutrients better. It's like you can't put nutrients in something that you can't expect the sourdough from the store to have the nutrients when they were never passed through. Like it's just not possible.
So this is something I find really interesting because I think there are a lot of people in our sphere who are making, and this was me too. Like when I was first learning to make sourdough, the reason I started making sourdough in the first place was because I have a daughter who had a gluten sensitivity. And I heard that, if the wheat was made into a sourdough, then she may be able to handle it, which ended up being true for her. And I started with just like organic bread flour from the grocery store because I was learning, all of these things.
That's great.
And then when I started learning about freshly milled flour, then I got a grain mill and my bread was just not great. That's beside the point. What I was getting at is that a lot of people in our sphere are making sourdough with regular bread flour, organic, maybe from a local mill, whatever, but it's bread flour. It's been sifted. It doesn't have all the extra stuff in it. And it's not a whole grain product because that makes a prettier or more, it has a good chew to it. It's a better, I'm using my quote fingers here, better bread, right? And I know lots of people who are high influencing people who are doing this.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them because it's a prettier bread. It's all these things, but I just think it's fascinating that if you're spouting the health benefits of bread, if you're going to add bread into your life, and you want it to be in a healthful way, just making sourdough out of bread flour, while it is a step up, I'm not saying it's not a good option, but it's not the
optimal.
Yeah, it's not optimal, or it's not the pinnacle. It's not, optimal is a good word.
I feel sad, because it's like, I feel like in this conversation, it becomes often controversial, but it's like when I first started, I thought the only options were store-bought flour. So I thought I'm picking the best option here or from like this online store, like this is my solution set. And so you can have a best within that sphere. And sourdough would be best, right? Because it's like actually allowing your body to digest it. It's super helpful. The problem is I feel like the conversation just doesn't expand big enough to like, what is a whole grain? What is fresh flour? It's just not a known topic enough for people to consider that like their solution set is not the full solution set. And no shame. That could be where you just need to be for right now in this season. You can't. So that's the best solution for you. Own that. That's great. Like these are your goals. There's another step that if your goal is like maximum nutrition, whole grain, all of that, like this is healthier. This does have more nutrients. It's the next step. It may not be the next step for you. That's fine. but like it doesn't take away from the fact that this does have more nutrients. This does have the enzymes. And like I view it like a stepping step, like commercial flour, it's better to do commercial flour sourdough. Better than that is just fresh flour bread. Better than that, maybe not better, but like more sprouted, better digest, like glycemic index, sourdough with fresh flour. It's like a spectrum. So like where it meets your lifestyle, that's where for like with young kids, often just fresh flour can meet that lifestyle better because you're getting the nutrients. Like my kids, constipation gone, like digestive stuff. We had lots of problems, tons of prunes, all these things. They know, they're like, I need more flour because like they ask for it because they know it helps them digest. Like they know it helps them be regular. And so I just feel like maybe like we're not when in those conversations, the full spectrum of solutions is not often considered.
Well, and I think within that spectrum, it's not widely known that there are thousands of varieties of wheat. True. And so I made my sourdough with fresh flour and it didn't work. So fresh milled sourdough is dense and I don't like it. That's actually something that we're trying to like alleviate first with our blends because of the baking performance that we get unsifted. You don't have to sift it. And then also Kira's been working for over a year on an unsifted sourdough series. And it's this, again, engineered, efficient, optimized approach to sourdough to make it very achievable and stress-free with a better outcome than what we see right now on the internet with freshly milled loaves. So
it's coming.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So quick question for you guys. Are you putting freshly milled flour into your sourdough starter?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I was see, I'm still not doing that yet. I'm of the mind. Oh my gosh. That like
looked all bubbles.
It does. I know. It's so alive.
I need a feeder. We'll do that.
Okay. So I need to switch back over. I need to do that is what I'm like, oh, it's so expensive. The grains, I don't want to use the grains for the starter. But
that's what yes, that's a good point. And that's part of what I'm not trying to just talk about, but that's like one of the things that I'm focusing on in like designing this. It's like, how much flour do you need to mill and then pour all of that in to do one feed? And then like, there's some studies or like people that talk about what the right amount of grams is of like starter to like not be wasteful, but like to get good microbial growth. And so like, we're trying to factor all of that into this sourdough like series to have recipe cards like this, like, but for sourdough, like here's how you feed your sourdough, like really simply, because it is just flour, but it's also not just flour in that it has nutrients and enzymes. And so it does like ferment faster because it has more enzymes. And so it's like, just like learning just a slightly, you have to do, there's some tweaks just to make it work out, to still get the rise, the oven spring, all of that, just slightly different timing due to the fresh flour.
Yeah. And I don't know about y'all. Do y'all remember Tamagotchis?
Yes, of course.
I felt when I was doing sourdough, I felt like I had a Tamagotchi in my fridge. I had to put that thing and I had to schedule around it. And then I had to bake like every day or else I was wasting all of the starter and I'm measuring and weighing. And it was an unsustainable nightmare for me. And again, some people find a rhythm that works for them and that is wonderful. It did not work for me. And so when Kira started going down this path, it's like, it has got to be Sarah Simple, like box mix brownie, simple sourdough. And we can't waste it because the grains are too valuable, both from a nutrition and from a financial perspective. We don't want to be wasting, and you don't want to be like enslaved to your kitchen because of the starter. So that is something new that we are bringing to the fresh flour community in a couple of months. We are so excited to launch it because there's really nothing that exists there's quite in the same guides, way.
But we're trying to be like a little bit more like hands-on, like walk you through it, just because so many of our customers don't have the baking
baking background.
So we're trying to like bridge that. So if they want the sourdough, they can have that in an easier way.
Yeah. Great question.
Okay. Next question. I'm sorry, Corey. This is like, can we talk kamut and einkorn?
Yeah.
I have both. I started my milling journey with kamut, and it definitely took a little bit of getting used to. I feel like I'm slightly used to kamut now, and my farmer offered a whole grain einkorn And I told Corey this. She already knows this story. But I made a quiche crust with it the other day. And I've been making quiche crust with kamut. And it was terrible. I mean, the kids were like, "This is disgusting, Mom. What did you make? Like, don't ever do this again." And I admit,
Kids are the worst.
I know, right? I didn't even really know what I had bought. I thought I bought einkorn berries. Like, that's what I thought I bought. And I think what I bought is whole grain einkorn berries.
Wait, what do you mean?
Flour?
What
Flour?
is the difference?
Einkorn flour.
No,
Oh, not dehulled? They weren't dehulled yet?
Oh,
Like they had the husk on the outside of them?
no, they definitely had the husk. Meaning, we're talking about whole
they
grain
did?
flour, right?
So the flour form or the grain kernel
No,
form?
I bought the grain kernels. I
Yeah,
had the grain
regular.
kernels,
Yeah. Okay.
and I milled them.
Yep.
Did they have the husk or no husk?
No, I don't think so. What does the husk look like?
It was like papery.
Kind of like straw. Yeah. Like
No. It was just it was just a much denser
Yes. Very
product.
flavor
Einkorn.
too.
It's like a deep toasted.
Yes,
flavor.
yes, exactly.
So
Then kamut.
Yeah. So this
Yes.
goes into, again, this perception that there are so many different grains and they all taste different and bake different. And for me,
And kamut and einkorn are wheat.
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yes.
both ancient
They're
grain.
ancient grains.
But if it doesn't taste good, no matter how healthy it is, I'm not going to eat it regularly. Like, the kids are not going to eat it if it's not delicious. And so we really want to incorporate that into this whole lifestyle of it has to be good for you and easy to make and delicious in order to be sustainable. Now, einkorn, in my opinion, has one of the most distinct flavors of any of the grains, which really is a limiting factor for how you use it. It's also lower for us. Again, some people absolutely love einkorn, and that's amazing.
That's all
And
they use.
we do have one customer who he is only able to eat einkorn. That's the only grain, and he loves it. And so that's been a blessing for him to discover. But it has a distinct flavor. It's low gluten, so you're not going to get a lofty, soft, luscious
That's what Corey
bread.
was telling me. Yeah, which I think is what happened with the quiche crust, where it was just like super dense, chewy. Like, it wasn't quite flaky and
And you can't like just replace einkorn and kamut in the same recipes because they have different moisture absorptions. They have different gluten profiles. They have, like einkorn has a higher protein, but like less gluten. There's just so many different like factors to the grain that in addition to taste. And so like that was one of the frustrations when we started too, because you get like a fresh flour recipe and it's like, well, I'm going to use einkorn and make this. Totally different than using kamut.
Yep.
Totally different than using soft wheat versus we have a dessert blend. And so that, I mean, I'm not trying to go back to it, but that is one of the reasons we blend our grain for nutritional, and just because it's like some people want to experiment. I enjoyed it when I started, but then babies, all the things. And I just want to know what I'm getting. I just want to mill it and just know.
Yeah.
And they're all good for different things. So it's like, but kamut is definitely a different flavor profile. Like, it's got a different gluten profile. Even that compared to wheat, it's like kamut is better for like mini loaves or like rolls or things like that. It's not going to be quite as fluffy and like big ones just because it doesn't have the gluten structure possible. So you can like modify it for ways like that. We sell kamut. We like kamut for like
pasta, pizza, and pretzels.
All the things that you don't need like big fluffy for.
That's right. But just like if you go to the grocery store, there's bread flour or all-purpose flour or pastry flour. Those are actually blends of grains to get, again, different protein levels, different baking performance, because they work better for different recipes. The same is true of grains. They are absolutely not interchangeable. Now, you can, but the deliciousness of it, the texture of it is going to vary significantly if you're not using the right grain for that particular recipe.
Interesting. Okay.
So if somebody were starting from scratch, they haven't done any whole grain or whole wheat. They haven't done any fresh milling. They bought a mill. They have a mill. And they're looking at this going, because when I started, I bought very large quantities of grains because that's the most economical, right? So I actually buy from bread bakers because we have a co-op here and my friend runs it. And so I bought these like 5-gallon buckets, and I'm like going, well, I don't even know what to buy, So I've got a bucket of hard, I think I bought a hard white, and then I bought a soft white, and that's where I started. And the simple answer was, okay, soft white is for things like cookies or something that you want like a kind of crumbly texture for. Hard white is going to be for things that you want more structure to. So a bread, anywhere where you want your gluten development to happen.
That's right.
And I had heard about combining grains from, sugar, what is her name? Cannot think of it off the top of my head. Vanessa is her first name, and I can't think of her last name.
Kimball?
She is...
Kimball, yeah.
Kimball, yes.
Yeah.
From the UK?
Yeah, so she's in the UK. She's incredible.
Yeah.
She has all these books that I have read and that are wonderful, but she has what does she call it? It's like a diversity blend is what she calls this blend of flours, but it also has like actual dried flour in it. Flowers, like flower petals.
It's like more exotic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
But I was just like, it's just for the microbiome building prettiness. I did not realize that it also is really helpful in creating whatever you want your flour to act like, how kind of manipulating it almost. Actually, I didn't realize that until I was talking to you guys for the first time. And I bought one of your blends, and I was like, wow, this actually works a lot better than just using straight up soft white or whatever it was. But
yeah, that's so interesting. We have places that our customers can ask us questions. Of course, that's one of the things that we're really passionate about, is being there for each customer. Like, we are cheering them on and helping them every step of the way, but they'll send us pictures sometimes of, dough, and they're like, my dough is like a soupy, soppy mess, but I followed the recipe to a T. And we can tell right away they're not using our grain, because our grain doesn't perform that way. It's a hard red that performs that way with a lower protein or a higher hydration, whatever it might be. And so there's actually a lot that you can tell about a grain from the look of that baked good, even before it goes into the oven.
Yeah, when we were experimenting, there's like, even blending the grains, it's like there's so many different ratios that you can use. And some are more bitter, some are like softer but not as lofty. And so it's like there's just a lot of
math.
It doesn't
and analysis.
Fresh flour does not have to be overwhelming if you just want like a simple thing. But one of the most common complaints about fresh flour is the texture. Like, I just don't like the texture of this. Why is it so dry and crumbly? And so if you want to start like pulling levers and like fine tuning that's when you do have to either use our blends or become like sort of knowledgeable about all the different types of grain, because you can't just buy a hard red. Is it spring? Is it winter? What kind of winter is it? Is it like, because some of the winters are like 11%. So you could have a hard red, but it's a winter and it's 11%. There's no chance you're going to get like a high lofty bread. Or you could have one that's on the higher end, and they're going to have different profiles. And so if you're getting a super sticky, dense, crumbly bread, it's probably your grain.
Yeah, that means too, you have to keep all those grains on hand, which a lot of our customers live in apartments or small spaces. Right. You don't have the space. And so the convenience of the size of this blend is going to work for these recipes is great. And also that you talked about a limiting factor of, Kira's baked for her whole life. Her husband and kids love her recipes. And so switching to fresh flour did not sound appealing, because she would lose all of these family memories and things that they loved. But because our blends are specifically engineered to match the baking performance of commercial flour as closely as possible, it's been easier to convert these beloved recipes than it would be with any other grain. And so you'll see that on our website. If you go to the recipes, a lot of them are for free, and they're things that you already enjoy, you get at the store, like Hawaiian rolls or angel food cake, kind of the everyday items that we don't often see in the fresh flour community, because you aren't able to control that baking performance and texture unless you do the blended, kind of more engineered path.
So are you guys working with grain farmers to procure these different types of grains? And then do you have a warehouse where you are then blending them yourself and packaging? Is that kind of how that works?
Yep, okay. Exactly. So different grains grow better in different parts of the country. So we source based off of like what's premium for that specific variety. And
Okay.
of course, they're all organically grown.
Amazing. Wow. And then, so if you're somebody like me who, I'm not at Corey's level where I'm buying a bucket of this yet. The most I've bought, I think I bought a 25-pound bag of kamut, and it literally took me the full year to get through it.
Yeah.
But what is the amount? Like, what amount do you recommend purchasing?
Yeah. So we actually created a starter kit specifically for this challenge. So our starter kit comes with the Wonder Mill, super simple to use, fine flour, low temperature, small footprint, but it comes with the Wonder Mill, our recipe cards with step-by-step instructions. And then we give you both of our grain blends. So we have 12 pounds of our basic blend, which equates to roughly, 16 loaves of bread.
Mm-hmm.
So that usually lasts most of our customers about a month, maybe 2 months.
Depends on how many kids you have, how much baking you do. Obviously, it really varies.
Yeah, but it's an achievable, manageable amount. You don't have to clear out space in your basement to have this. So it comes with 12 pounds of our basic blend and then also 5 pounds of our dessert blend, which is for your cakes and cookies and pastries and things like that. And so from there, there's additional sizes up to 30 pounds that people will buy either for food safety or they're just master bakers in the fresh flour world. And some of our customers buy 4 buckets of grain every month at a time because they've got boys.
Well, and I like to keep them in, I think they're pretty.
Boys.
Yeah.
I know people can't see it online, but you guys can.
No, it's beautiful.
I think they're pretty. I keep them in glass on my counter, and then I refill this from a bucket in the basement. So I'm not before we were Unsifted, and I had a lot of buckets, 16 buckets of different types of grain. Drove my husband
that's
crazy.
what I've got.
He's like,
it feels crazy.
How can we fit all of this in our basement, Kira? You've got to lower your grain storage. But I'm like,
and then when you mix it, the recipe would work one time and the boys would love it. And then she'd make it again, but it was a slightly different blend and they wouldn't like it.
They're like, how can you just use the same recipe? I'm like, I did. And then but I changed the recipe. I changed the blend. They don't like it.
So the starter kit just eliminates all of that stress. It's these blends work. Here's the recipes. All you do is use the blend that the recipe calls for, and you can order the size that's convenient to you. And most of our customers are actually on a whole grain subscription. So the refills are delivered directly to their door. And we specifically size them for predominantly female audience. One of our customers just turned 90. And so she can't pick up a 25-pound bag of wheat. She can order in 5 or 12 pounds and she can do that. And so we have the different sizes that are really a lot more convenient and kind of user friendly, back to that user experience compared to a lot of other grain vendor options.
And the starter kit you said comes with the recipes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
There's
this is amazing. I feel like this would be a really good Christmas present. I already know who
there's
I'm
a lot
going
of
to gift
Christmas
this to.
Yes.
Yeah.
We always say tell Santa early because there's nothing like fresh milled cinnamon rolls Christmas morning. So if you talk Santa into an early starter kit, that is the ultimate pro tip.
Okay. And then I live in Texas, so I'm guessing storing the grains is probably best in the freezer for I don't have a basement, obviously, and the garage is like a sauna 9 months out of the year.
Do you have a closet anywhere that has a footprint for a bucket or?
Okay. So just a closet inside the house too.
So obviously the prices of grains can vary a lot. Corey, you talked about bread bakers. They treat their grains for bugs, but all organic grains are at risk of pests, bugs.
I was going to ask about that.
And so a lot of times the cheaper the grains, the less likely they are to have been treated, which means you are at risk for storing the grains that you're going to open your bucket and it's already going to be eaten. They're going to have enjoyed all that grain. We don't want the stress of that. Again, we're all about convenience. And so we actually double treat our grains at Unsifted so our customers can have confidence that they can store them safely, as safe as you can. Of course, you can't eliminate all risk from the situation.
I actually had a bucket of spelt, a full 5-pound bucket or 5-gallon bucket of spelt that I opened up because I don't use it very often. And we should just say, for listeners' sake, unmilled wheat or unmilled grains will last almost indefinitely.
Yeah.
They've found it in tombs of pharaohs and stuff, and it's still usable. But I don't use it a lot, but I just had bought it. maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, and I opened it up to use it, and there's all of these creepy crawlies crawling around in there. And thankfully I called the company. They worked with me really, they reimbursed me for the bucket, and they're like, you can do the winnowing thing, which is where you like slowly pour the grain out with a fan, and the fan will like blow the bugs off of it, and then your grain will be okay. Yeah. And my husband's like, yeah, you could do that if you hadn't first told me that there was bugs in it. So anyway, my chickens had a great treat, but
chickens are happy, but we don't want them.
Yeah, the chickens were totally happy. I was not, because it's a lot of grain.
It is a lot.
And
it's so gross. And it's gross.
It's gross, and it like gave me a bunch of heebie-jeebies for nights and nights in a row, where I'm thinking about, oh, the lights are off. What are those crazy bugs doing in my pantry?
Yep.
So, what are some ways that we can avoid that with storage? Because this was a bucket of it had been treated. So I don't now I'm like feeling this only happened recently, and I'm still a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, because it creeped me out so much. Which is totally a first world problem. I get that, but maybe let's talk about a little bit about how we store wheat berries.
So we can share how we share them or how we package them for longest storage, because I think that might be helpful. We put them in a Mylar bag and then in a bucket. So if you're talking long-term storage with oxygen absorbers to keep because really the problem is once the oxygen hits it. So like if you want to keep a stash of grain, you're going to want to make sure it's sealed, because it's otherwise like the eggs, could start because it's organic.
Yeah.
And so,
because the eggs are going to be there. We're not avoiding that. We all understand that. We just don't want the eggs to hatch and then eat our grain.
Correct.
And we don't want to see them.
Or we don't want to eat the bugs. Yeah.
We just want to like pretend they're not there.
So like I like to keep 2 buckets, and I would not open the seal on the second one until like I needed it, because that's going to last like years and years and years, right? For prep, whatever. So I'm not one of those people looking for flour at the store when something happens. I have my family taken care of. And then the second bucket that I do open, that's the one that I open. You could put more oxygen absorbers in if you wanted after you've opened it, just to like seal it and keep it safe longer. It kind of depends on like how long is it going to be in like open from when you used it. I go through a bucket. Obviously I do a lot of recipe testing, and I have like 3 kids. And so our grain usage is probably different, but I go through a bucket about a month. And so I'm not worried about that. Even if it was several months, I wouldn't be worried about it. But if you're going to have a bucket, like I go through one like this, like probably weekly or more, depending on. So it just kind of depends on what you're making, what your frequency is, how you want to store it. Just knowing that once it hits oxygen, you have started like it is more at risk. And so you're trying to minimize that.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people talk about freezing their grains. Freezing, from everything we have researched, experienced, and seen, freezing doesn't kill them and eliminate the risk. Again, it just delays that risk.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not the most efficient. I mean, some people have huge freezers. And at one point, before we started Unsifted, we were looking at buying huge freezers for ourselves to stockpile grain. It just wasn't practical for us. Go ahead.
And you do need to be careful with freezing, because the condensation, like the changing of temperatures too quickly, can then create like a moisture on your grain, which then can feed mold or like fungus.
Oh boy.
And so I'm not saying that to scare you. It's an option. It's just a consideration. You wouldn't want to like put it in, take it out, put it in, because now you're creating potentially a secondary problem that's not solving. Like
that's right.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that. That's where my einkorn bag is right now, is in the freezer. And then I'll decant it into a glass jar like you showed.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
which is probably fine. You just want to be aware of like.
Yeah, that's good to know. Okay.
Do you maybe do it when you first take it out? Do you maybe just leave the lid off so it has the moisture can escape? I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah, I'm not
help. Yeah, it can help.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a consideration,
We would away from it, and we don't do that Unsifted just to ensure that there's no risk of that, because we wouldn't want the like bottom of your buckets to like have any sort of condensation.
Yeah.
But in general, you do want to store your grains. If it's a long-term storage, they need to be in a high-quality Mylar bag, which like the grains, not all Mylar is the same quality. Some have pinholes and all sorts of things, but high quality Mylar sealed up with oxygen absorbers and away from pests,
Like
and
in
a bucket, and then in a cooler environment. So probably a garage is less ideal than like a basement or a closet or something like that. Again, it's not that you can't do that. It's just, it's less risky to be at like a room temperature.
Okay.
So room temperature is okay. We're just trying not to put him in the sauna of the garage.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you had to pick an optimal, you'd say like what, 65,
Yeah.
70?
Yeah. 63,
like,
65.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My house is never 65.
Neither
unless
is mine. Are you kidding me? My husband will flip if I put the house
Mine
at
too.
65.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Our farmers tell us that they store their grain around 60, I think. So,
Well,
but they're not treating their grains. We treat the grains. Again, we double treat
Right.
to prevent from that. And so, yeah, it's just something to be curious about as you're looking for grain and you know, what is the process that it's going through to make sure it's meeting the goals that you have.
Because we all have different goals.
That's exactly right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in that vein, wait, did you say something?
No, I just wanted to do a time check.
Okay. I know, but I do want to talk about this because I think it's important.
Okay, go ahead.
In that vein, we've got, if you're looking for home mills, right? You've got basically two options. You have your stone mill and you have your impact mill, right? Which is different from the industrial mills that are using rollers to mill the grain.
Yep.
And I know we talked about this, but then we had technical difficulties. Yeah. So I want to talk about this again, and make sure that we have this on here for our listeners, because I have a stone mill, and I don't even know if I told you this, Christine. I just bought an impact mill because I was having trouble with my stone mill for more refined baked goods. I wasn't able to make things like cakes and cookies as well, and I wasn't able to do things like, I was trying to make puff pastry and I was trying to make croissants and things like that, where you need a really, really fine flour and you need to be able to have that gluten development to be able to support the butter and the rolling it out and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so now I have two mills and
Committed.
Ludicrous.
She's all in.
But I would love it if you guys would go over the different types of home mills that people can have, and make sure you touch on the KitchenAid situation, because this is something that I definitely am really glad that I did a little bit of research on before I bought my first mill, because that would have been devastating to lose my KitchenAid. But so let's talk about that for, the little last bit of our recording here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start just by saying that this is always the most controversial thing that we talk about. People are very, very passionate about the mill that they chose most often. And so we just...
Well, because you spend a lot of money on it.
Spend a lot of money. It's an investment, and you take the time to learn it, and it's like part of your family. Like if my house was on fire, I'd take my mill with me on the way out the door. And so however you choose to mill is wonderful, right? If you're excited about that mill and are going to take the time to learn it, mills can be wonderful solutions.
Don't hear judgment from us. We're just sharing facts about different decisions.
They're just
factors.
considerations. Now, that being said, different mills meet different goals, thankfully. And so it's important to really consider, what are my goals for my mill? What are my goals for fresh flour baking? And so just like you mentioned, Corey, the mills fall really into two categories: stone or impact. Well, the professional mills. There is the KitchenAid attachment, which is the cheapest option. However, it's the only mill that we do not recommend, because it can pretty easily burn out the KitchenAid motor. And we've seen this happen from dozens of customers. It actually happened to us. And all of a sudden, this low cost entry point has become very expensive because you're replacing your whole mixer. It also doesn't make a fine flour. So we're going to steer clear.
You'd have to be okay with like a very gritty, more artisan kind of.
Like gritty cookies and not lofty breads. Yeah. So we really don't want to talk about the KitchenAid as a great option. So aside from that, stone mills or impact mills. The stone mills crush the grain between two stones. They're typically heavier, and they usually have not quite as strong of a motor, and so they mill slower. than impact mills. Impact mills have 2 stainless steel mill heads. They burst the grain and it's very fast. That process goes very quickly. Stone mills typically have a higher learning curve because you have to learn, what distance to adjust those 2 stones apart. And just as you mentioned, Corey, in your experience, depending on the mill, it can be very challenging to get a fine enough flour to really like the texture of your baked goods. And that's probably the biggest complaint that we hear about stone mills. A lot of people find us after they've already purchased a stone mill and they've spent several weeks or months being very frustrated and getting discouraged about it, their family not liking how it turns out. And then they come to us and they think, oh, I wish I would have heard about the Wonder Mill before I bought my mill. Okay, so that's the stone mill. Now, stone mills can be great, especially for larger grinds of things like cornmeal, or some customers use stone mills for like chicken feed. So again, depending on your goals, they can be wonderful solutions.
And they're usually like very beautiful.
They're beautiful. Oh my goodness. Before I researched fresh flour, like I was just getting into it, I was like, I couldn't hardly sleep. I wanted the stone mill so badly. I was like dreaming of this beautiful stone mill and I wanted it so much. And then the more I read, I was like, oh, I just can't. But anyway, so that's the stone mill. They're also typically open chute, which means the flour has to be caught in a bowl. So you've got to have a clean bowl on hand. You rotate that bowl under the chute. It is slightly, slightly more flour dust gets into the air, which for me is an issue. Ironically, I'm allergic to raw flour. So I wanted to have a mill that was totally contained. But it's not what we consider hands-free milling. It's got the stone mills have smaller hoppers on top. You gradually pour the grain in around this big knob, and then you're also rotating a bowl underneath. So it's not something you can leave. You've got to kind of monitor it, and it's more challenging to use. The impact mills, on the other hand, are totally enclosed. So you pour the grain in the top and push button start, turn a knob to set the coarseness. It's very intuitive, and the flour automatically goes into a flour canister. So after you've added the grain, you can go off and get your eggs out of the fridge or wash a dish or help a child, whatever you need to do in the 10 seconds that it takes to mill your cup of flour. For us, the biggest roadblock to success with fresh flour is the learning curve. And stone mills have that steeper learning curve. And so impact mills really don't. They're very intuitive, push button, simple, and very fast. We recently posted some specifications from each of the mill's websites to compare the milling speed and the motor size. Like, for example, I don't know. Do you want me to say the names of the mills? Is that
Yeah, go ahead.
y'all?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not sponsored by anything. We'll just throw that out there.
So, like, the most beautiful mill I've ever seen is the Nutritional Harvest, in my opinion, and it's a beautiful stone mill. It is also the heaviest mill and the slowest mill of the options, except for I think the Mock Mill 100 is a little bit slower. The Mock Mill 100 is a little bit slower than the Harvest. But if you look at the feed rate posted on the Nutritional website, it's 128 grams of grain per minute. If you normalize that to 200 grams, per cup, all the calculations, which I'm happy to send if you're interested. But the Harvest makes roughly 0.64 cups of grain per minute. Mills 0.64 cups of grain per minute. It's 6 times slower than the Wonder Mill, which is an impact mill. So over time, if you're milling daily or weekly, something that's 6 times as slow can really be a hindrance. It can really add up, right? The minutes count when you're busy.
And it depends if you're doing single batches. Like a lot of our customers just do single, or I do triple. And so that would matter more to me doing more grain than someone that's only doing one. So again,
Lots of factors.
You can pick any of these and be proud and happy with the mill that you chose, because you know what your goals are and what your time constraints and all of those things. So we're just providing facts because people continually say, I wish I had known that. I wish I had known this. And so we're just providing
just things
information.
To consider. Like I thought that all mills milled at the same speed and at the same coarseness before I started. I had no idea that it could vary so much. And so I really was only picking based off of looks initially. But if you look at the motor size, you look at the milling speed, you look at the fineness of the grind, there are some significant differences. So impact mills are the easiest mills to get a very fine flour at a very low temperature, because they combust the grain. Well, they don't combust it, but they burst the grain very quickly. Whereas a stone mill is putting pressure and grinding, it actually can glaze the flour from overheating, forming like a thick paste and a soupy mess. So from a temperature perspective, I'm biased towards the impact mills as well, going back to that what is fresh flour. So Nutrimill Harvest is most common grain mill that we see from a stone perspective, followed by the mock mill, 100 and 200. And then after that, you go to the Nutrimill Classic, which is Nutrimill's version of the impact mill, and then the Wonder Mill. And Wonder Mill is also an impact mill. Now, the Wonder Mill and the Nutrimill are very similar in terms of the fineness of the flour and the temperature of the flour. The Wonder Mill is slightly more intuitive for the dials that you use to set the coarseness, but the biggest difference is that the Wonder Mill is significantly smaller than the Nutrimill Classic. So like the diameter of the Classic is very large, whereas the diameter of the Wonder Mill is much smaller, and the Wonder Mill is also shorter. So if you're looking for a mill that's easy to store or doesn't take up as much counter space, the Wonder Mill is the option that you would want to go.
Like I store the mill on my counter and then I put the canister down below because I don't need it. Like I'm just trying to keep less stuff on my counter. So that works out well for me.
Yeah, it's also super lightweight. Like I pack my Wonder Mill in my carry-on when I travel, and I make fresh milled bread at the beach and in Albuquerque, all these places, because it's lightweight. So the Harvest is, I can't remember off the top of my head. We've got it posted on our page, but I want to say it's like, I mean, it's more, it's like 2 or 3 times the weight of the Wonder Mill, if I'm remembering correctly.
But it makes sense because they're stones, right? So it's just like,
there. Literally the stones.
But not everyone's taking their mill to the beach.
You don't have to do that. I don't mean for that to be stressful. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
But that's what we look for.
What about the health benefits between the stone grinding, which is what's been done forever, and the impact mill?
Yeah, this is a common misperception or maybe just lack of awareness, I think. So historically, stone mills have been equated as healthier because they meant that 100% of that whole grain was being crushed and transferred into the flour. Nothing was being removed. So a stone mill in that context versus a commercial roller mill, the stone mill is much healthier because nothing's sifted, nothing is removed. However, now impact mills, nothing is removed from the grain with an impact mill either. It's just a different way of crushing the grain and a more modern way of crushing the grain. And actually, I think they're have slightly more, I think they have a little bit of a more nutritional advantage than the stone mill because they can mill at a slightly lower temperature. That's what I'm trying to say. But what you will find in modern marketing is that marketers will play off of that term stone milled to create the perception that it's healthier. But what a lot of commercial millers do is they just crack the grain on a stone mill and then they run it through the commercial milling process. So now they can claim stone ground, but it's not retaining 100% of that whole grain. So when you look at
some more greenwashing.
Yeah. Brainwashing, grain washing. Yeah, either way. So from a home mill, the impact versus the stone, they're both giving you the unsifted flour. What you do with it after it's milled is what's really going to determine the nutritional goodness of that flour.
Excellent.
Thank you for explaining that. That's super helpful. I am one of those people that bought the stone mill because it was beautiful.
Yeah, they are gorgeous. Yeah.
You can have great flour. So just,
I do know, okay, I'm just telling this to you, Christine, but I do know that Nutrimill has to have an outstanding return policy because we've had many customers who've had their mills for weeks or in a couple cases, a couple months, and they haven't been successful and they've called Nutrimill and Nutrimill has let them return it. So I think this is actually a common challenge.
I actually have a mock mill. I don't have a Nutrimill.
Okay, well, I can't speak to that one then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a mock mill as well.
Oh, you're both mock mill girls. That's great.
The one I bought was the Nutrimill Classic recently.
Nice.
We got it.
It's great. Good.
But
Good.
speaking earlier about Christmas presents, I'm already deciding I'm going to get my mom your starter kit. And then I'll also have a stone mill handy close by. So if I ever feel it, or not the stone, sorry, the impact.
Impact.
So if I feel like I need it or I want to borrow it, I totally could. So
That's great.
my problem is solved.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You did mention, Corey, the new impact mill. I don't know if you want us to talk about that briefly or not, but
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so it's a brand new mill from Nutrimill. It's enclosed. It's impact instead of stone, as the name would lead you to know. The main thing that we found is that where the motor is manufactured is typically they're less reliable. It's an older motor. Kind of design. So it's kind of like to be determined for how that's going to perform long term. We're not trying to say one way or another, but just based off of like the milling community and the vendors we've talked to, that's something that they've pointed out to us as a consideration. But the biggest thing we've heard from customers that have had the impact is that you don't have the same flexibility for, again, the coarseness of the grind. It's a more limited range of the coarseness. And so, it just depends on what you're wanting to bake and how fine-tuned you're wanting that texture to be, whether that's a good option or maybe something else would be. So,
Excellent. Okay. Do you guys have anything else that you feel like is burning that needs to be addressed?
Let me look yeah.
I just love, I guess one of the takeaways or one of our values is like hospitality. And it's just been so fun. I'll just say this. It's like, I feel like we've been blessed to see like front row view of like so many people that they mill, they feel better. And then they want to share it with someone else who has XYZ ailment. And so it's just like something about like healthy bread and like just the satisfying nature of eating that whole food. I mean, you could say this with other things too. It's like you just want other people to experience it. And so there's like just this heartwarming hospitality of like smelling the bread and then sharing it. And I just love that aspect of it. Just however you choose to mill, like just being able to provide people with something that actually can help provide like true sustainment or like,
it's such a different feeling to like welcome someone in and know that what you're giving them is going to nourish their body. You're not feeling bad for giving them something that, wouldn't. And so that's been a great lesson for me. And we really want to just like, that's actually one of our values is how can we create a movement of generosity through fresh flour baking and really equip anyone to be able to have, fresh flour conveniently for the people that they love. The other piece that came to mind for me was just about I just lost it. Just the opportunity of having your mill in your home and for your children to see fresh flour being made and to know that it can be a whole food and to know how to make it. I mean, you all know this from how you already are raising your children, and just the value of that experience as a child, I think, is really fantastic and something that we're happy to be a part of as well.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so if you're on Instagram, it's unsifted.kc. And we also have a website. It's unsifted.com.
And that's where they can find all of the research you were talking about and all of your tips and tricks on baking with freshly milled flour, and then also your blends and your starter kit and your recipe cards and
all of it.
All of it is there, exactly. And as of last month, we have just opened up a storefront in Kansas City. So if you live in Kansas or Missouri, you should come and visit us. We've got
so cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Dang.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, we just feel very blessed to have that opportunity. So
that's very cool. The Weston Price Conference was in Kansas City
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Oh, cool.
And that would have been super cool to be able to meet you guys. Obviously, the store wasn't there, but regardless.
Well, if you're ever out here, let us know. I'll be in DC early next year. So,
All right. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Everybody go order some flour. This is coming out after Christmas. So thank you. But you could, I don't know.
So we talk a lot about New Year's resolutions. Like, it's the easiest resolution you'll ever keep. Eat more bread. Healthiest year ever, most delicious year ever. Get your starter kit and welcome 2025. So
Lower your
Love it.
cholesterol with more bread. Yep, that's a
Love it.
Oh my gosh, that's a wonderful ending right there.
That's it. Goodbye, everybody.
Drop the mic.